Hi everyone, welcome to today's alumni exclusive webinar. We have Dr. Sven Hansen with us today, and I'm really excited as he chats about some resilience. I know a few of you have been asking questions on the platform, so I thought I'd intro him and then go into his presentation today. So Dr. Sven Hansen is the founder of the Resilience Institute. He has a background in medical, in medicine and sports medicine, which is cool. And after an MBA in 1993, he sort of asked the question of how we could translate and take ideas to a wider population and landed on business. So he helps reduce businesses' stress, reduce the risks and improve business performance. And this set the scene to build an evidence-based, practical solution to sustainable performance in business and life. So Sven has worked extensively with professional firms, banks, corporates, government, entrepreneurs, universities, schools and sport, and leads the development of the Resilience Institute methods, research and training. So the mission of Sven's work and the Resilience Institute is always been to promote sound physical, emotional and mental well-being. I hope that gives what you do justice, but I'm sure it does. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much for your time with our alumni today as we sort of hit the end of the year with about 4 or 5 weeks to go. We are really excited to hear what you've got to say about resilience and how we can end strong and get into some good patterns. So take it away. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Brian, and fabulous to be back with the Icehouse community.
It's awesome.
And, you know, it's a rolling game, so it's always fun to do this. So I think the question, Brian, you had to flesh it out is you have been approached by some people who've said, it's been a long year. 2020 has been a difficult year. We've had to face all kinds of things that we did not predict. You know, can you imagine if you go back a year's time, could we ever have predicted? So, you know, and of course it's affected people differently. Some have got more busy, some are less busy, some have lost their businesses. So it is a very unsettling time, and it's been going on a long time, and it's probably going to carry on a long time. So the questions I understood it was, you know, how do we as business owners handle the pressure when we're feeling maybe just a little bit low? Would that be accurate?
Definitely. Yeah, that's what we're hearing from our alumni and business owners for sure. Yeah.
So look, I think what we do, let's go through some basic ideas, and I really encourage you, Brian, just to jump in with some questions as you go, and I'll share my screen. Not that we need too many slides, and you know, we may come back to just simply dialogue if that works better for you. So I guess the theme I thought about in trying to reflect on your question is, you know, the key is, how do I recover and renew myself? And unfortunately, unlike sport, in business, we're really bad at this. You know, we work too late, we leave too many things loose and hanging, we don't sleep enough, we spend our downtime sometimes unwisely. All right, so I'm going to start with the idea of what rhythms and flow are, because that's where we want to get back to as a business person. The difference between acute and chronic pressure and how we might handle each of those differently. You know, what does a sort of bounce and recovery cycle look like, and how do we establish tactical calm in a real high pressure system without trying to be a monk? You know, that's going to be beyond most of us business people. And then finish with a little bit around the daily discipline. And I think for many of us coming to the end of 2020, this is really important, you know, because the change in the way we've worked, the remote work and lack of travel, many of us have lost our disciplines, our daily activities. It's so important to reestablish them. We know from research in psychiatry that people who reestablish their daily disciplines bounce forward faster. In other words, they get post-traumatic growth. So, you know, really want to highlight that as an absolute key factor. And then for the doubters, I thought this was interesting. And, you know, this is last year's data. And looking at sort of people who do an assessment with us, learn a bit of this stuff and do a follow-up assessment just to see where the changes are. So you can see huge growth in contemplative practices, which is anything meditation, prayer, mindfulness, sleep quality, relaxation, huge jump in bounce, right? But all of these negative things that are wearing us down actually reduce quite considerably. And I've put this up because I think everyone listening to this has got to understand you can make a big difference. Small changes can really change the game. And if the business owner can change, you can change a community. So this is somebody that might be familiar. This is 115 owner managers from back in 2018, just showing you how they improved. So you can see a reduction in risk and a significant improvement in physical, emotional, mental, and even that flow concept idea. So message is, it works. And if we as leaders walk into our businesses, meet with our customers, and we're in a good state, we're going to create good things for ourselves and for our company. If we're in a bad state, we can create real drama for ourselves. So to set the scene, I thought, this is really the goal. This is what we want to get back to. Now, some people have got it. And, I worked with a company in the Middle East a couple of weeks ago, and they really have got this rhythm and flow. And what does that mean? Unlike a computer, where you can turn it on and expect it to run for you all day, humans are not like that. We are rhythmic. So if we start at flow is a state of optimal performance for a professional. So when a professional hits flow, they can be 5 times more productive. You have these altered brain waves, you've got a whole lot of chemically stimulating things happening in your brain. It's a wonderful state. Thinking stops, timekeeping stops. It's effortless, even graceful, and it's rich. That's the day you go home and say, you know what, it was a tough day, but I love my job. What a day we had. Now, the challenge, as I said earlier, is that many business people don't treat recovery quite professionally enough. We really want to professionalize it, because the only way you can go from a flow state round this rhythm and back to flow is by having deep recovery. So the brainwave has to be totally different. You're looking for deep sleep. You're looking for massage. You're looking for anything that's going to encourage serotonin, oxytocin. Meditation can do it, which allows the body, the emotions, the mind, and all those sort of cellular and chemical constituents to recover and reboot fully. It is only once we've done that we can set clear goals again, right? Which is stimulating. We rise, if you like, to a challenge. And then a little clue here is that you don't actually want to storm into your challenges. You want to relax into them. Mm. It's such an important idea of kind of thinking, okay, this is a big meeting. How do I sink into this? How do I relax and exhale? So instead of rising to it, instead of taking a deep breath, you exhale, you relax, you trust your training and your experience.
Mm. Is there, just a quick question, is there recovery or clear goals, these different groupings, is there a common time frame that different people stay in one, or is it very individual, situational?
Great question to ask, because we don't know. So we do know from circadian rhythms, some of us are larks, early to bed, early up, and some of us are owls. And there's an hypothesis in sleep medicine that a lark is more likely to get flow in the morning, whereas an owl may get flow at night. A book done surveying 300 creative people showed a very clear pattern that there are some people who start their productive creative work very early, and they're pretty much done by lunchtime.
Interesting.
And there's, another half that tend to be a little debauched through the day and will start working after dinner and will work to the early hours of the morning. Right. So that's a book called Daily Rituals. Very interesting book. So I think, yes, the question you ask is relevant, and I think each of us should ask when we're most likely to get this rhythm. So for me, I find the presence when I wake up to be quiet, keep the lights down, do some stretching, have something warm to drink. Maybe if I've got time, and do a bit of meditation. So that's really being very calm. And then my flow kicks in usually 7:30 to about 9.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Very important through the day, particularly when you're doing this virtual work. It's incredibly demanding on your neural circuits. Particularly empathy. So, we're looking at small screens of each other. Sometimes you're looking at 70 faces. It's very demanding for the brain.
True. Yeah.
And, some execs are having 11 calls in a day. It's just too much. So you've got to ask the question, well, if I'm going to do half-hour calls, what do I need to do to recover before I start the next call?
Right.
And then that also creates the time and the pause to say, all right, well, why are we on this call together? What do we want to achieve? Good, clear, relax into it.
Great. So you'd say that this flow would actually be a daily flow? Is that what you're saying?
I think the rhythms are up to everyone to develop themselves. Most people suggest that in work, you're probably going to have one period of about 90 minutes of flow per day.
Yeah, great.
It's just too demanding to do more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So the rest of your day should be more relaxed, more social, more sort of steady control stuff. Because remember, flow is really, it's up there.
Yeah.
You really are fully engaged.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks.
And of course, the challenge is, and where we get to stress, is that instead of stepping into flow and having this mind quiet, this sense of time fading away, effortless and rich, we have this kind of dullness where we just feel like we're grinding through the day. And you get beta brainwaves, you get cortisol, you get inflammation. So then when we come home, we probably switch on the TV or have a few beers. Again, the TV will ensure, Netflix will ensure you have beta brainwaves. Then when we open our computer, perhaps after you've watched a couple of episodes, then you've suddenly got 25 emails to deal with. So you're going from one to the next. That's called multitasking. So it's not surprising when you step into the next challenge, you may have quite a bit of anxiety, right? This is the thing I think, everybody in this field agrees clearly. Step one in handling pressure is to know when you get into this faulty cycle, to know when you get stuck, when the rhythm falls away and it just becomes a slog. It's absolutely exhausting. And for many of us, we've gone through 2020 exactly like this. And now you go into your family Christmas on the 25th, and what's going to happen? You're not going to be welcome. So step one, be aware. All right, notice it's okay to have a few days like this, but if you're going weeks and months, that's a real problem. The second step is to define between acute and chronic. And I thought in terms of the question, we focus on the acute pressure and how we manage it. So it's the end of the year, you've got a customer comes in screaming at you, and it's just so tempting to let loose at them. All right, and that can create a really bad situation. And this can be the same when you get home and you start yelling at one of your kids. All right, so we're going to focus on that acute. And, in the ICE House Owner Manager and LDP programs, we have a lot of work on the chronic distress. So we'll focus mostly on acute. And, one of the frames, it's a lovely old curve. And, for those of you who've seen it, just never a problem to go through it again. It was called the Yatesdson Curve, goes back to 1908, and it's still used today. Those America's Cup sailors who are out there right now, they're using this all the time. That's why they have all these tracking devices. So it says, under challenge, we have a range of biological responses to challenge. One option, all right, is as I described, you have someone complaining and you just let rip. And you're screaming and shouting, or another situation, someone attacks you and you burst into tears. Or sometimes a meeting gets really high conflict and all you can do is just run out and slam the door. These are what we call freeze, collapse, fight, attack, and flight reactions. Quite common. And there are a lot of them happening right now. You just look at how the American election has gone. We've seen a huge amount of this sort of behavior. That is failure under challenge. And as leaders, that's 100% what we've got to avoid. All right, we all know that state where we're facing a big challenge, issue with a bank, can we get this loan? Do we get over this month? It's pressure where the body now feels something. You don't react, but you feel very uncomfortable. So you might feel you're holding your breath. You may actually feel your heart. You may feel tingling around there. You may feel a tense of stomach tightness. This is what we term distress. All right. It is a much lower way to be in terms of confronting the challenge. Then we have peak. And peak is your optimal response to challenge, if you like. This is where you really can get stuff done. The problem with peak is where it's emotional, where it involves people, money, complexity, it doesn't work. So you can peak a 100-meter sprint, but you can't peak for a full meeting with colleagues. Within 2 to 3 minutes of peak, you start to see your performance drop off. All right, the flow we described is where you're on the more relaxed side of this curve. This is where your productivity can be 5 times higher. All right, so keeping on the relaxed side, and whether this is sport or combat or business, that's the goal. Spend time in flow and absolutely minimize the time in red peak, gray distress, or black freeze, flight, and fight. And as I said, the America's Cup guys, they're doing this all the time. So you can see Peter Burling, he's actually at peak there, 75% heart rate, and all he's doing is just sitting, steering. Glenn Ashby, very experienced. He was actually on a bike and doing his strategic work at the time. He's condition yellow. He's actually in flow. Look at that, 59% of his maximum heart rate. Ideal. Pro Carlo is running at 91% of his heart rate. All right, that's all the way down on the black side of the curve. That's why his head has collapsed on the deck. He simply can't think. He is hired for his brutish leg muscles. As a very unusual person, but you get an example of this working. So our goal, and we'll talk about what we can do under pressure or challenge, is to spend more time in this flow. And equally, perhaps at this time of year, a little more time in relaxation, kick it around, relax, take your time, don't put pressure. I think finding a bit of space as we move into Christmas is going to be really, really important. We absolutely want to minimize these red, gray, and black. Does that make some sense for you, Brian? Is there anything you'd like to question on the simple idea?
Yeah, it's great. How do you, when you talk to people, do you find that people know themselves where they fit on the graph, or how they can then decide, oh no, I'm in distress and I need to go to relax or into flow, and actually realizing they're at that distress point? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, again, as we said earlier, step one has got to be self-awareness.
Yeah.
And this is, you'll see I've written a couple of biological indicators. I mean, this is where many of us who are wearing heart rate monitors or various, these aura rings.
Yeah.
Getting biofeedback from your body can be really helpful. So learning to notice, because in this particular thing, it's all about heart rate. You can sit in a meeting, as long as you can keep your heart rate under 115, you can be very powerfully effective.
Wow.
But if your heart rate goes over that, this is an average, obviously, and each one's got to work out where we are, your performance drops really quickly. If your heart rate hits around about 145, that's where you lose it. All right. That's when you get angry. That's when you run away. And that's when you burst into tears.
Wow.
So learning to track your pulse is probably step one of awareness. 2 is the breathing. You can now get these little blood pressure cuffs for an executive. Highly recommended. You'll see when you're starting to move down this curve, your blood pressure starts to tip up 5, 10 points.
So in those big meetings, it's actually better to keep your heart rate down and to keep relaxed, and you'll have a better outcome that way.
100%.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. Yes. And in fact, for those people who are learning to kind of detect and manage themselves, be much more relaxed than you think is actually appropriate. The more relaxed you can be, the more effective you'll be. Think someone like Roger Federer. He has survived as long as he has because he really knows how to calm himself quickly, to say deeply relaxed, right down to his face, which is really, really soft.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so I think, the awareness and, and I think your question is absolutely the right one, is key. There is a little bit of science out there that I think is useful to just touch on, and it's about the vagus nerve. All right, we have the longest nerve in the body is called the vagus nerve. It runs from your brain. It's the 10th cranial nerve, runs all the way down to your gut. This thing moderates pressure. It keeps your biology in that yellow zone. The more you practice, the thicker or more myelinated, that's the fatty substance that goes around the vagus nerve, the more myelinated the nerve becomes. All right? This is probably, I think, for most of us who are practical business people, we want something we can see and touch and understand. All right? Why is the Navy SEAL so calm under pressure? At the end of the day, because they get a really thick vagus nerve. They've trained it for months and months and months. The same for the yogi, the same, for a really good negotiator in business. They will have good vagal tone right at the core of this. And the simple, most powerful step in any pressure situation is dial into your breathing. Because, even the stimulus from around you is often wrong. People will say, take a deep breath. So I go, well, the second I take a deep breath, I'm using my secondary muscles of respiration. You can see the tension in my neck. You can hear the air going through my mouth. That's an alarm signal. My heart rate's up, my blood pressure's up, and you go into a hyperventilation pattern. All right, adrenaline is released into your body, noradrenaline is released into your brain.
It's a myth that taking a deep breath works.
It's actually extremely bad advice. And we actually have an article to that name, and it is by 100-fold the most popular article on our website.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Thousands of hits a month.
Wow, interesting.
So it's very bad advice. If you want to disable someone, ask them to take a deep breath. If you care about someone, remind them to exhale.
Wow, great.
Right? So right at the heart of recognizing how you're responding now, not reacting, you're responding because you're aware to challenge, is to breathe out. Mm-hmm. When you breathe out, the diaphragm will relax upwards, the air will leave your lungs, and your heart rate will slow, your blood pressure will slow, and your carbon dioxide levels come up just slightly, which is very, very important. If you can breathe out 6 seconds and pause, you've activated the vagus nerve. Mm-hmm. All right. So, in a nutshell, if we could each do that in these tricky moments of our day, in the traffic with our kids, mm-hmm. in the workplace, on the sports field, breathe out slowly through the nose, pause. Everything calms down. You've moved back into that relaxation zone. Now you can step into flow. Without that, you're not going to find your flow state.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Right. And then being aware, and I think it's just maybe, just to help people understand, correct breathing is low. It's not here. It's right down around your ribs and your belly. You want to gently feel an expansion of your ribs and your belly. That's what the inhale is. And when you do that, the diaphragm is tightening over the abdominal contents. Mm. Now breathe out, relaxes again. All right, so we can build from this your simple pattern of tactical calm. 6 seconds out through the nose, empty completely. Gently breathe in for 4 seconds through the nose and repeat. All right, and if you really have to do it quickly, exhale, pause, step into the situation. All right, that is the key to being present. And just to give you some of the things that are out there and being discussed at the moment, as I said, the breathe out, long, slow, pause, well established. If you were to accumulate about 8 minutes of breathing, as we described there, per day, you will start to register long-term changes to your physical well-being, your emotional stability, and your mental skills. Things like attention, empathy, flexibility, influence. And of course, you can do this with a contemplative practice of some kind for those who want to go deeper. But you can also do it just by throwing ice cold water in your face. So between those Zoom calls I talked about, maybe you rush to the bathroom, run the cold tap, and just throw cold water in your face. Wow. That will activate the vagus nerve. A massage. There is not one person who could potentially be interested in this who shouldn't think about getting a couple of massages before this year closes. Wow. When you get a proper body massage, we're not talking about anything silly, just a straightforward deep tissue massage, you massively reduce secrete oxytocin and serotonin. So if you really want to bounce fast in that relaxation space, go treat yourself to a massage. I think for anyone watching this, do that right now.
That's awesome.
You're guilty, right? I was there 2 hours ago.
That's brilliant.
And I hadn't done it, you know. I was a regular massager because of my sports demands, but you know, COVID came along and I just stopped, and I hadn't been for months. And gosh, how nice to get back to it.
I don't think anyone can complain with that tip. No one can complain about that one. Go and do it.
No, exactly. And I think, you know, that whole concept of physical touch in a world that's a little bit tense about safety and so on.
It's true.
It's a great shame. We do need, as humans, just like any primate, a lot of physical touch.
Yeah.
Gargling, water or beer can do it. Fasting can do it. Laughter does it.
Excellent.
Even singing, you know, singing away in the shower, in the car, will all activate the vagus nerve. And any time you spend with another human being in the face-to-face environment triggers it. And there's some interesting work coming out on sunshine and vitamin D. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, I'll wrap here and then maybe we can finish with some questions. You know, this for me is just the simplest idea to handle pressure in these tricky times. You have to really work at it because we are a little low in the tank. So the normal skills, the normal relaxation, the normal humor we expect from ourselves, a little depleted. So being really deliberate about this idea of tactical calm, I think, is absolutely at the core of recovery. Use all those things we described, but it's this that you can do immediately. At any point, you can check your posture. Just lengthen your neck a little bit. All right, maybe inhale gently, just to bring your attention into that belly space. And then you go into that long 6-second exhale. Slight pause if you can, and gently in. 4 seconds, and repeat. All right, as you get better at this, even thinking about doing it will lower your heart rate, drop your blood pressure, and restore your heart rate rhythm. All right, so if you spend enough time practicing, if your vagus nerve is trained, simply thinking this does it.
Wow.
And one of the references I'll share with you for those who really want to be serious about it is Kerry Evans' book. You know, he's a psychiatrist who worked with the All Blacks. And he talks about this idea of red, blue. In other words, I'm only going to red, reactive, or blue, responsive, calm. Decide, and then execute. So they're expected to go into a difficult situation on the field, a high pressure moment, often very fatigued, and to still be self-aware enough to say, oh, I'm tending towards red. You just back out a little bit, exhale, find a clear head, and then make that decision to go be present and engage and flow through the blue brain, rather than the red mist of reactivity.
Great.
So I'll stop there maybe, Brian.
That was great.
And if you have any questions or anything you'd like to wrap with.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Thank you so much. I love how practical it is too. I think, yeah, the breathing one is really good. I think people can implement that, you know, straight away. I was thinking, you know, business owner driving home from, you know, big day at work, but knowing they're going home to kids excited about Christmas. There's some things that people can do in the car. I think the breathing one probably sums it up, but to change that headspace of work to play, you know, now that we are going to be holidaying, and but some people say it takes them a week of holiday before they get into holiday mode. How can we speed up that we're now in holiday mode feel, or is it some of those practical things you mentioned?
Yeah, that's a key bit. I mean, I might use a slide here just so people have an opportunity to take notes and stop it. So, sorry, I'm going to have to just flick forward a little bit.
No worries.
So I think, you know, this for us is the most important slide of all time. I said right at the beginning, if you have a daily rhythm, your resilience bucket fills up. When your rhythm breaks down, your bucket empties up. So just starting to think about, as I move through this close of 2020, what things might I start to put into my day? You know, I think it's something I'm trying to do. If I can do 1 hour in flow, I give my day a tick.
Awesome.
Mission accomplished, even if the rest is really irritating. Sleep. Be really tough with your sleep. Be really tough with your exercise. And as you mentioned there, practice those transitions between home and play. So those would be the sort of foundations. In terms of a couple of things, I think it's way too late to wait for the end of the year, 24th, before you do it. Plan now. Think about what you do between now. You've got basically 4 weeks to Christmas. How are you going to prepare for it? How are you going to make sure you can step into this holiday time ready to rock? Because as you sort of allude to, is many of us will know the situation if we're so looking forward to a holiday, we've taken this precious 10 days off, we crash into the holiday, and the day after we get sick. And we spend a week in bed. And just as we recover, we're going back. Well, you don't want to do that in 2020.
Not at all.
So I think that planning and thinking a little bit about what your rhythm might be between now and the end of the year to just begin to create healthy patterns in your daily activity. Prioritize the sleep, prioritize exercise, prioritize relaxation, and the regularity.
What's morning blue light?
Okay, great. So the blue light that's in the sky in the half hour or so before sunrise, before the sun actually comes up, is what we call the primary sight keeper. Every morning that you get blue light in your eyes for roughly 20 minutes, you reset that whole biological clock.
Wow.
And you can see the problem for an owl, can't you? Because an owl often misses sunrise.
Yes.
So they never get the blue light reset. And this is why, owls have much worse health outcomes, particularly mental health outcomes, than larks. Blue light in the morning is good for us. So Philips actually have a light that you replace your alarm clock with, and it lights up your bedroom.
What do you think of those?
In the morning. The science is crystal clear.
Awesome.
People's energy is higher. People's mood is better. A number of people find it's the only way to cure depression.
Wow.
So what it's doing is it's sorting out all your biological clocks and your hormones.
Yeah.
So if possible, every day.
Awesome.
A little thought, I had a discussion with a group yesterday on this. For some people who might be feeling a little flat and tired, vitamin D, you got to be careful. Is it a placebo? Does it really work? We don't know. We do know, though, that people with high vitamin D levels do a lot better than people with low vitamin D levels.
Wow. Yep.
If you can get out in the sunshine a little bit over the next couple of weeks, I think that'd be a really wise thing to do. Just, get out and get as much sun on your skin as you possibly can for about 15 minutes.
Awesome.
If you can't do that, I would go and get a little vitamin D supplement, just in case. All right. Some people absolutely swear by it, although we still need to be a bit more sure from a scientific point of view. I'm a great fan of nature, by the way. I think that, there's plenty of medical research now showing that spending time hearing birds, being close to the ocean, is very good for filling that resilience bucket.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. That's a great list. And I might need to put on my Christmas list that alarm clock by Philips. I think that's a great idea. I've heard a couple of people that use it and love it. So that's awesome.
Yeah. In our European team, it's kind of standard practice. That's what people use.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that's covered a lot and very, very valuable, especially seeing some of those lists that if people, grasp onto this now and not just, looking at it a day or two before Christmas Day, could actually, really change how the end of the year looks like for them. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate your time and lots of value there. So thank you.